Hey, Facebook, how's it going? Why can't my people just do their jobs? Book launch team coming to you with the step six, our sixth engagement in the series, the Empower series. Today's step is the E in Empower, the second E in Empower, engage their inner problem solver. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you all know that I am going to be going on live with a great friend of mine, person that I've known since high school, is doing great things in the ministry space and prayer and intercession, and working with churches to improve how they serve their congregations. C. Terrell Wheat, Minister C. Terrell Wheat. I'm going to be on his channel today in just about an hour. So if you have time, and if you're around or whatever, it would be great if you could tune into that. I'll be sharing it. And if you could share that with your people, when you see that, when you see the video, that would be great. So, like I said, today we're going to be going into step six. And of course, as we do in every one of these videos, the first thing that I like to do for you is to recap and to kind of go over what we talked about in the first 5 stages. So if you remember, Empower is an acronym. There's 7 stages in Empower. That was 6, 7 stages in Empower. Stage 1 is E, evaluate your expectations. What you want to do there is you want to have reasonable expectations of what your team is capable of now, because that'll make sure that your team is set up for success in the short term and in the long term. You can make plans for improvement, but you can also make plans to make sure they can accomplish now, right? Step 2, measure their expectations. It's also called the matrix moment step, right? And that is basically because whether your team succeeds or fails, this is something that you have to understand and comprehend. Whether your team succeeds or fails is up to you, period. And the reason that is because you as the leader define success. You control their perceptions of their success. You structure their reality. You give them the goal. Therefore, you are in control of their success or failure. Step 3, you want to play to win with the team that you're dealt. This is the chapter, the step that we go through proper delegation strategies, right? The person who has true power is able to give it away. And the delegation principles that we talk about in step 3 are clarity, aspiration, inspiration, trust, and ownership. You have to really focus on each of those principles and the things that you do and set your systems up to reinforce those principles. Because the key is, if you are not empowering, you are not truly delegating. All right. Step 4 is optimize. That's the old step. Optimize your opportunities for growth. Right. And that's really reshaping how we think about growth and the learning process. Right. And the step 1 of that, the key idea in there is failure is the foundation for success. Failing, not meeting the mark, is the foundation for success, right? Every plan will fail at some point. That doesn't mean that it will be a failure, right? That doesn't mean failure is permanent. Failing is temporary. So failing is foundation for success, right? Every plan will fail at some point. The key here is that resiliency is the key to success. Heard another researcher say grit is the key determining factor over who will be successful in schools, what businesses will be successful. It's not your ability to go through unblemished. It's not your ability to be pristine in your execution. It's your ability to get up off the canvas once you get knocked down. That's the determining factor of success. And in order to get there, you have to embrace and create an environment for your team where you realize that done is better than perfect, because done can be improved upon. All right. Step 5, of course, is our W step. That's the step that says watch and learn. That's where we're executing, we're supervising, we're allowing our team to operate in their gifts, right? They're on our team for a reason. They have certain strengths. We have them in their roles for a reason. Step 5 is where you allow them to do what they do, right? And in this step, you have to realize that if you are going to be the type of leader that creates other leaders, you have to be the first follower of those leaders that you are developing. You have to be their fan, their cheerleader, their spectator, and allow what you are seeing from them to inform your leadership process, to inform how you help them to become the leaders that they are supposed to be. You must allow your team to help you be a better leader by learning from them. See, leadership, empowering leadership, is a reciprocal relationship. Remember that empowering leadership is moving from dependence to interdependence. I'm sorry, dependence to independence to interdependence. The master leader, the empowering leader, is not someone who is self-made, is not someone who has pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. The master leader is someone who understands that they are constantly learning on this leadership journey, and the very people that they are helping along the way are helping them to become better as well. And so that's what we do in step 5, and we model that behavior, we model that humility for our people in step 5. All right, step 6 now. So engage their inner problem solver. All of those steps are about kind of the execution and how you prepare for the execution and how your team executes. But then there's the next 2 steps, step 6, step 7, that happen after your team executes. And they're just as important because they reinforce and they build and develop your team from just being people that are able to do to people who can teach and people who can lead others, right? And so this step 6, is engage their inner problem solver, right? And this is the key to this step is understanding the purpose of being a leader, right? The purpose of being a leader is not to get things done. You've heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again, probably say it till I'm blue in the face. Once you become a leader, your job is no longer the results. Once you become a leader, your job is no longer doing the task. As soon as you make the transition from being a doer, a technician, an executor, to being a leader, your focus can no longer be the task and how good you are at doing the task, how well you were able to do the task, or any of those types of things. Because guess what? Nobody really cares how good you can do the task except you. They gave you the job because they felt like you could get other people to be able to do the task. That's your task. Your job is not getting things done. Your job is empowering others to get things done. Your job, on top of that, is to create other empowering leaders. Your work is to develop your team into empowering leaders in their own right. And in order to do that, you have to create a system that helps them to help others. And that's where this stage comes in, because you got to start transferring, bringing them along the path. You got to start broadening their skills and broadening their mindset and getting them to develop the leadership's mind, right? You got to start teaching them the skills that they're going to need one day to lead their own teams as empowering leaders. That's what this part is. Engaging their inner problem solver is about seeing the future, seeing when they're going to be leaders, right? And the first people that they lead, of course, are themselves. So that's what you're helping them to do. Ultimately, how well you do as a teacher will allow you to spend more meaningful time with your team and less time worrying about what they're actually doing, right? Again, we talked about the proverb of teaching a man to fish or giving a man a fish, right? And again, flip that proverb into another dimension. The empowering leader is not just an effective leader, right? That's one part of it, being an effective leader, helping your team to execute better, helping your team to be better at getting the job done and accomplishing their goals. But that is not the hallmark of an empowering leader. That is kind of par for the course. That is competency in the empowering leadership world. Ultimately, as an empowering leader, you are not only trying to teach people how to fish so that you can feed them for a day or feed them for the rest of their lives, right? You're trying to teach them how to teach other people how to fish. Because when you create disciples, right? When you create leaders, instead of just creating doers, what you do is you change the landscape for untold future generations, because you've now passed on the knowledge of how to teach, how to think, how to act and be an empowering leader. And that is your number one goal. Your number one goal is that the next generation will benefit from the work that you're doing now. And therefore, your systems should focus on helping your people instead of accomplishing tasks. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying here. It's not saying that accomplishing tasks isn't important. It's saying that if all your system does is accomplish tasks, you are missing the mark. it is an understood component that we're going to get the job done. But the system is set up so that if for some reason the job doesn't get done this time, instead of the leader having to do more work, instead of the leader having to be the golden goose that lays the golden egg and be the miracle worker and be the savior, the system makes it so that all of the people involved are active participants in fixing this problem and being problem solvers. And as the system continues, as you lead your people longer, as you engage with your people more, the amazing thing about it is they do more of the problem solving. You do more of the cheerleading. And then that allows you, that frees you up to create more systems for them and to promote them to doing more of the planning and to getting them further along that path. Ultimately, your job as a leader is to work yourself out of a job. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. So the whole question in your empowering leadership journey, especially at this step, is what is your leadership legacy? And you hear me ask that a lot. What is your leadership legacy? What is the legacy of your leadership? You know, when you look at professional sports, right, there are great coaches, and there are coaches that have been able to, you know, win lots of ball games, that have been able to get their teams to do great things. There have been those coaches who were awesome in the kind of effective leadership realm. They won lots of titles. They did lots of things. But then there's an upper echelon of coaches, right? And I want you to think about coaches like John Wooden at UCLA, like Bill Belichick, coach of the New England Patriots. Those types of people, and Bill Walsh in San Francisco, and there are others throughout all different sports, right? Those types of coaches were not only phenomenal at it and effective as leaders, they helped their teams to do great things. But if you look at their pedigree, if you look at the coaches and the players that played under them or that worked for them, what you see is that success continued, right? When you look at the players who went to UCLA, not only did UCLA have one of the longest standing records for wins in the history of NCAA sports, not only did they win 8 out of 10 championships over a crazy period of time, not only did they have, you know, NBA player after NBA player after NBA player who came out of that program, but if you look at the men who graduated from that program who did not go on to play basketball, who did not play in the NBA, what you will see are business leaders, are community leaders, are people who learned how to be leaders from that great leader. If you look at the coaches that come, Bill Belichick has something like 16 former coaches who have coached under him are either NFL head coaches or Division I college head coaches. Included among them, Nick Saban, who is like the king of college football right now, right? And has been for some time, right? He has a pedigree of coaches. And if you look at his assistants and his players and all the rest, like you can look at their resume, you can look at the people who put them on their resume, right? As mentor or work for them. And those people are successful. So when you're thinking about this step 6 and step 7, when you're looking at your people and this step specifically, understand that you are preparing by engaging in their inner problem solver, by excelling at this strategy, at this step, you are developing your leadership legacy, right? A lot of the first 5 steps are really developing yourself as an effective leader. These 2 steps interwoven with those 5 steps are the game changers that will develop your leadership legacy and change you from just an effective leader to an empowering leader, right? And so the question that you have to ask yourself when you're looking at your leadership legacy is, are you a doer or are you a leader? And that goes even for the problem solving, for after the fact, for fixing things in your organization. Are you a doer or are you a leader, right? And leader in this sense is going to be synonymous with helper, right? If you're a doer, you're the person that sees the problem. You're the person that is the doctor, is the expert, comes in and says, hey, this is how it should go next time. Hey, here's the answer. Hey, this is what I saw that you did wrong, and here's how we can fix it. I want to see you do that next time, right? Don't get me wrong. It's not bad. Being able to do that, right? We all go to the doctor, and there are times we go to the doctor, we're like, doc, what do I got to do to fix it? That's what we want. But realizing when you go to the doctor and the doctor does that, does it make you any better at being a doctor? Marginally, right? The next time you have that problem, you know one solution to it, but you haven't thought through the problem. You haven't gone through it. It's a lot different if you have a helper, if you have a leader, someone who is there to help you to understand and to think differently and to solve problems. And what we're calling for you to be in this step and in this program is to be a helper, a leader. You are going to lead your people to be problem solvers and to ultimately be able to teach other people how to become problem solvers, because that is the key, that's one of the key points of delegation, right? Beginning to be able to give other people ownership of the issue. Part of the ownership of the issue is ownership of the consequences, ownership of the problems that result from poor behavior, from mistakes. So it's extremely important that you master the skill of engaging your people's inner problem solver. And so in doing that, one of the things that we want to talk about are critical thinking skills, right? Your job is to help your people become better problem solvers. And there's a very specific method that I use, that I teach, that I like to do this. And it's not something I came up with. It's been in use for at least 1,000 years, probably 2,000 or longer, since that's when Socrates was around. And that method is called the Socratic method. In Socratic teaching, we focus on giving our students, giving our team members, giving our employees, right, questions, not answers. By working through problem solving with questioning and inquiring, right, we model for them an inquiring and probing mind that is continually probing into the subject with more questions. We begin to show them what problem solving actually looks like for the leader, right? Oftentimes when you just come in with the answer, right? You remember back in math class, your teacher never wanted you to just show the answer, right? Getting the answer right was like, yeah, so what? You could have went and looked that up. The teacher wanted to see the work. And here's the key. By showing the work, you show the people how to go through and work through the problem. You show the people that there are multiple steps to this. You show the people that there's no magic behind what you do. There's hard work, and there's thought, and there's processing, and there's answers that sometimes come up, I don't know. And that's part of leadership. You model for them in this process what the inquiring mind is, what the leader's mind looks like. You help them to understand the reality that leaders can't be perfectionists if they're actually going to accomplish anything great. That there are plenty of times when the leader doesn't know what to do, and it's by inquiring, by going through this process that we get to better results, and that we're constantly continuing our processes. And so we use the Socratic method in this way. And it's not as if you only do the Socratic method after the fact. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we've talked about is there are plenty of times when you can ask these types of questions, when you can engage with your team. And as a matter of fact, we do this often. In the Marine Corps, one of the things that the martial art that we do in the Marine Corps is called the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. And it's a grouping of a number of different martial arts programs, from jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, karate, kung fu, different things. But the important part about it is that, and there's weapon stuff and all the rest of that, but the kind of slogan of McMAP is one mind, any weapon, right? And the idea is to make that it doesn't matter what the weapon is, you have one mindset about that weapon, and you're constantly using different weapons to accomplish the same goal. And I say that to you here in that it may be a quality control check, it may be a weekly meeting, it may be a quarterly review, it may be an annual salary meeting, it may be an initial hiring decision, it may be interview questions, it may be a Friday social where you take your people out to dinner, or whatever the case may be. But whenever you are engaging with your people and you are trying to engage there in a problem solver, you have to realize that your job is to teach them how to think like a leader. And so the goal of the facilitator is to act as the logical equivalent of the inner critical voice, which the mind develops when it develops critical thinking abilities. Your job is to be their Jiminy Cricket. is to model that for them, right? To ask them the questions that they need to be asking themselves, and not in a way where they feel pressured to answer you or come up with the right answer, but just in a probing, in a inquisitive way. You're wondering what they're thinking, right? You don't have pre-planned answers that you want your people to come up with, or that you want them to regurgitate. As a matter of fact, this is also a learning process for you, learning how they think and learning that there are different ways to see this puzzle. You do have a direction that you want them to go in, but you don't necessarily need specific answers, right? Remember that this is a learning process for everybody involved. By following up on their answers with further questions and by selecting questions that will advance you in the direction that you want to go, your job, or what you do as the Socratic questioner, right, is you force them to think in a disciplined way, in an intellectually responsible manner. But the cool part is that this is a safe space because you're continually helping them by posing the facilitating questions that get them down the line. It doesn't leave them in a place where they don't understand. It doesn't leave them in a place where they just are like, oh, there's no answer, right? Constantly, you're helping them to guide them on the path that they go. This is the way that you teach them to think critically about the issues that you have recognized. Remember, we talked about those areas for improvement, right? Room for improvement. When you have these teachable moments that you want to talk to your team about, this is the place that you do that. This is the place that you ask those questions and get them to think about those things, right? And you develop their proficiency at both critical thinking and at whatever it is that you're trying to improve with them by having them come up with their own solutions and try them out and see what happens. You're teaching them to think like a problem solver. You're removing their dependence on you to solve everything. You're helping them to move to become independent. And the key to this is, while you're helping them to move along that continuum that we talked about, right? We talked about being dependent, independent, and interdependent, right? As you're moving them from being dependent upon you for all the answers to moving them to being independent, you're teaching them that independence isn't this place where they're going to stop. You're teaching them how to bring other dependent people on to independence and how to also listen and learn. They see that they want to get to that place of interdependence. So part of your questioning is also letting them know that you're learning something from them, letting them know, oh, that's a different way of thinking about it. I never thought about that before, right? You're giving them the kudos for their answers, and then you're asking them more questions. You're showing them that you're just as interested in what they think as in what you think, that what you think isn't the most important thing. When I was a teacher, one of the things I used to pride myself on in my classroom is that we were able to have in my 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade Spanish classes discussions about racism, discussions about slavery, discussions about the conquest and colonialism, right? In my Spanish classes. And I was able to talk to my students about this and get their ideas and hear about how these topics related to, current events and how they affected their families. But I never had to give them what I thought about these topics. We never had arguments or discussions about my personal beliefs. I was constantly able to learn from them and to get them to engage and to get them to go through what they were thinking, what they wanted to explore, right? I would pride myself at the end of the conversation when they would have to ask me, say, Mr. Eve, what do you think? And I wouldn't tell them, of course, because that wasn't the point. The point wasn't what I think. The point was getting them to figure out what they think and taking them through that. That is your job as an empowering leader. Engaging their inner problem solver is about their solutions to the problem. If you solve all the problems, you become necessary, right? You become necessary for the enterprise. If you are the problem solver, they can't do work when you're not there. If you become the problem solver, you can't leave work and know that it's going to get taken care of if something that you haven't explained pops up. If you are the problem solver, your people are forever playing in their little boxes of permission. They are never being innovative. They are never taking initiative. They are never stepping outside of the bounds for fear of embarrassing you, disappointing you, or messing up. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to create an environment where You don't have to solve all the problems, because that's when the brilliance of your team will come out, right? That's when you will see how awesome and amazing your people are. By implementing this system, right, this empower system, and especially this step, by using their inner problem solver, you begin step by step, day by day, to work yourself out of a job. As you teach your team how to think about problems, and more importantly, as they begin to see themselves solving the problems, they come to rely on you less and less. This, coupled with the work that you've done in all of the previous stages, work that you've done to build their trust, to create a safe environment for them to fail, to protect them from catastrophic failures, right? And to change the way that they relate failure and success. These things coupled together will make your team more comfortable with working outside of that permission box that we were talking about, right? That permission box that they've lived in for so long, so much of their lives. From grade school to high school to college to their first job to even out, maybe even working for you, right? They will begin to trust themselves to do the job well without you. They will begin to take inspired action that comes to them, right? When they see something that they can solve and they know that they have the permission, right? They have the trust from you to go solve it, right? They will also anticipate the next steps, right? They'll start thinking like you think and anticipating what you want to be done, because they've worked with you long enough and developed their critical thinking skills enough that they have confidence that they're seeing the problem in a similar way that you do, or at least in a way that's congruent with your team's values and your vision for the team, right? Ultimately, step by step, day by day, your team will be able to take over the duties of managing their own performance and even managing the performance of their junior team members. This is where it really gets fun, right? This is where you start to see the growth and you start to create a team dynamic where people are expected to become empowering leaders. As you continue to implement your system, your people will begin to manifest the greatness that lies within them. You will begin to have your reasons for hiring them or for keeping them on your team, right? Your reasons will begin to be confirmed again and again. Like I said, this is where you will see the beauty that is their strengths, the amazingness that is, your team. This is where their gifts will come out. This is where you'll be able to see the world differently, because you would have never thought of some of the things that they will put together. And the most awesome part about it is this: once they are empowered, once they are liberated from the fear of failure and emboldened by the confidence of your trust, they will begin to surprise you on the regular by accomplishing things that, while they are congruent with your vision, are beyond anything that you could have ever dreamed of. This is the point where that synergy begins. This is the point where 1 + 1 begins to equal 11 and 11,000 and 11 million, right? This is the point at which you begin to transition to a truly empowering leader, a master leader, a leader who, when your work is done, the people can say, we did it ourselves. So again, thank you for being with me in this class, Power Step number 6. Always, 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 I want you thinking about what your thoughts, what your actions, and what your systems and your processes are doing and how they're affecting your leadership legacy. And remember, live every day like it was on purpose. Have a great one.